Nino, how long have you been here with Los Angeles Opera?
Quite long. I came in 2005 to work on the production of Pagliacci, and in 2006 I was invited to come back on the full-time basis, starting the Young Artist program, so I've been here since nearly 20 years.
So you started out slow and then took on the Young Artist program.
Yes.
Excellent. I'm sure there are other things that they ask you to do in the opera. What are some of those?
Oh, it's a long list. And it's very flexible list, and there are things that just come up on a need basis. So it can vary from literally musical needs and into something that is not entirely musical. But you know, when you become a part of the company such as this, almost you develop like different tentacles for every need that arises, and you just deal with it.
Well, I know you often are at the Opera League seminars, speaker, you bring the singers, so we do see your face.
I love those. It's really a joyful event to put together, and I love that.
And Tamara, you're from out of town. You're from Austin.
Yes.
And tell us what you do in Austin.
I am professor at the University of Texas, Hokum Horns. I am director, producer, and principal coach of Butler Opera Center, as well as artistic director of Butler Opera International Competition and Festival. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, we had a competition, and Nino's young artist, Anthony Cemataro, won second prize. LA Opera was very well represented. I was very proud. Nino was one of the judges, and Anthony sang beautifully and rightfully won second prize and came back here very proud.
So obviously, you're both musical. I believe you each started out with piano. Now tell me about your early upbringing. Was there music in your house? How did you start with this career in piano and develop it into coaching in the opera?
We literally not only grew up, we were born into the music because our mother is an incredibly accomplished and talented piano teacher that has already by now, 50 plus years of experience teaching. And we were growing up in this one studio type apartment where we had a grand piano and the upright piano. So there is always somebody playing. So there's just no way we could not be.
Where was your apartment? Where did
in Tbilisi, Georgia. Not the state Georgia, but the country Georgia.
Ah.
And so of course, my mom, being mom, she said, I cannot teach my children. So we had other teachers to work with us, but she always took such good care of preparing us and make sure that we were on our way to
maybe?
practicing. Exactly. Yeah, and also when we were growing up, studying music was something it was a very big part of child education. In the same way sports are probably now or something. So everybody played violin or guitar or piano. And not all my classmates, of course, became musicians, but they became educated listeners, they became music lovers. Mm-hmm. So it was just a big part of general upbringing. And on top of that, we had a mom who was a professional musician, so we had double whammy.
Somehow piano sounds always connected to me, to my mother, and the comfort of home. So while I personally love violin now, I don't think I would have been as successful as a violin player. So life always knows how to make it work.
So after this gymnasium, how old were you when you left that, and where did you go with your piano after that?
Well, when I was growing up, they were kind of gearing me to become a doctor. So somewhere at age 15, my mom said, well, this is the time when we have to decide, are you going to be a musician or you're going to be a doctor? And I thought, and I said, well, I think I'm going to be a musician. So by the time I was 16 and a half or 17, I finished this gymnasium, and the next step is to enter the conservatory, which is a very, very high-level institution also in Georgia, in Tbilisi. And as I said, half of my classmates went on to become something else. I have friends who are lawyers, chemists, doctors, everything. And then half of my other classmates who stayed musicians, we all smoothly went into the conservatory. So the whole novelty of like college friends that are new was almost kind of halfway, because these were people I grew up since we were 5 years old together. So there was very much beauty in that. And I had incredible professors at the conservatory, fantastic education for my bachelor's. And somewhere around that time, like between 15 and growing into the conservatory, I started distinctly liking playing for other people rather than playing by myself. And in gymnasium also, we had the kind of like starting from 8th grade, we had education in chamber music and in accompanying. So it was something that kind of like, as a complete musician pianist, you are supposed to know. So it was part of the curriculum. And more, you know, I have friends who would be like, come play with this for me, or show me how this goes or something. And I liking that more. So after finishing my bachelor's in piano performance, for my master's degree, also in Georgia, I went to study as a accompanying manager.
I'm assuming you were at the conservatory together.
Yeah, I was just behind her just a couple of years, but unlike Nino, nobody asked me I wanted doctor or not, because from the early
You didn't
on
want to be a doctor.
no, they decided.
She was a piano prodigy child, so of course it was super clear. There was no question about
Yeah,
it.
so they decided that. Anyway, so. Yeah, so I was also in the conservatory, but luckily at the time Iron Curtain was mostly down, so we could go travel, and I was lucky to be able to go to different countries and enter competitions and win. I won several international competitions, and so while in conservatory, I didn't necessarily have too much time to play with other people because I was really concentrating on my solo career. But when Nino and I went to this competition in Italy, where I was entering as a finalist, and I won top prize, and Nino won prize as a best accompanist of the competition. And then one of the judges came to me and said, if you come to study with me, you know, we'll give you a full ride and full scholarship, and you know, basically your education will be fully paid, which at that time for Georgia, which was torn by war, was basically winning the lottery ticket, huge lottery ticket. So I had amazing professor back home, and I said, no, I want to finish studying with him my bachelor's, and for master's I'll come to America. And he said, that's fine, we understand. So I waited for 2 years to finish with my professor. The things I learned from him then, I still use it every single day, and I wouldn't change. That was a very smart decision to stay with him as long as I could. And then when I came to America, we didn't know much about America. So when he said America, in my mind, America was New York, what we've seen in the pictures. But I ended up in Iowa, which was very different than what I would imagine America was. But actually, it was grace. People in Iowa are wonderful, so caring, so warm. I came with $70, one carry-on suitcase, and maybe 5 words in English. And these people just took care of me, made me feel welcomed, made me feel part of community. I experienced this truly unique Midwest hospitality that is very similar to Georgian. So I felt like I left Georgia, but I was kind of like a version of Georgia in Midwest. Have I ended up kind of a very tough place like New York City or Philadelphia or in LA, I might have had harder time. Of course, being in a school where there's no Georgian speakers, no Russian speakers, I spoke no English. It was utterly lonely. So even though I was a concert pianist and they invited me there as a concert pianist and I was still winning a bunch of competitions, I slowly started gravitating as well, playing with other people. So at least those times when I was in rehearsals, whether it was an instrumentalist or a singer, I didn't feel lonely at that time. At some point, I got really, really lonely and I missed my family and my sisters. So I I reached out to Nino, would you be interested to come to America? And she said, well, I was just thinking about it, how great would it be? So I talked to my professor and I said, can you get my sister the same deal, full ride and everything? And he said, I remember how beautifully he played. I remember what a great musician she is. It will be my honor to have her as a student as well. So, bada boom, next year Nino joined me in Iowa, and I've never been lonely since.
That's fascinating.
In a
And how
nutshell.
nice for you to have her here too.
Oh, absolutely. This is a dream. This is a dream.
No wonder you're so close.
Yeah.
And I know you've both completed your doctorate,
Yes.
and you both gravitated from solo piano work, you a little earlier, to accompanying. And your students are so lucky to have this wonderful technical background to support them.
Yeah. In some way, I do sometimes teach residencies at other universities, and sometimes I work with solo pianists or accompanying pianists or singers or chamber musicians. And it is absolutely, without a question, how every kind of pianism informs the other. If you play a solo piano and you think orchestrally, because it may not be like Mozart sonata does not look like orchestral score, but once you have played orchestral score, you know that it should sound like here are the woodwind instruments playing and here is the cello playing, and it still will inform the playing. Even if it's a solo piano piece, it will sound richer and better and more colorful because you think of it as orchestral piece, and vice versa. Everything is hand in hand. You play with the chamber musician. Clarinet, for example, clarinet and voice are so inseparable in the quality of producing music that you might as well be playing with the singer. Everything goes very hand in hand. So it's very useful to
I try to
this.
learn something new every time I come in this building, and I'm kind of overwhelmed with what I've already learned today.
The biggest misconception young people have, pianists, that somehow they think that switching from solo piano to being a collaborative pianist for instrumentalists or being an opera pianist is somehow easier deal. And a lot of my students who come to study with me in Texas for opera coaching, they're disillusioned in the first lesson because I show them how difficult it is, first of all, to play orchestra score at the piano, and then also how many other things you have to learn other than just what you see in the score. Playing opera score on the piano is definition of reading between the lines. So what's here, what's there, how does this phrase sound, how does that phrase sound? So to me, as much as I loved my solo playing, I don't want to say burned out, but I kind of wanted to challenge myself more. And I found that challenge in playing orchestral scores. So now, in my opinion, if I play something like Manon Lescaut or if I play something like Aida, it's just as much a Brahms sonata as anything, but it's even more complex because now I'm playing representation of oboe line, and here I'm playing representation of trumpets off stage. So how would that sound? So it challenges me pianistically, intellectually, artistically so much more than, let's say, Brahms sonata that I've played since I was 18 years old. So this is the message, and I would like to really herald through young pianists that playing opera score is actually, in a way, it's a next step of artistry because opera is a complete art form. So being a part of opera is elevation of your artistry. We'll talk about it later.
Thank you.
And that's even before you get into the text and words and language and all other things.
Right.
Yes,
This is
and the
just to
acting. And
tell you
yes,
this.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for
Thank
honoring
you.
us with
Thank
all
you.
your knowledge and your clear thinking. We appreciate your friendship, and we look forward to seeing you around the halls.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you
Looking
so
forward.
much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything you do and what the Opera League does.
Yes.
It's really wonderful organization that not many opera houses can
Yeah.
boast. So
Yeah.
it's really special.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, definitely.
We love
Thank
learning.
you.
We love helping.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.